I do think of it as about just the natural life force where, something rots into the ground and that becomes, it looks like death, smells like death, but then it also is a kind of compost for new life. I had a kind of epiphany where I started looking down at the ground, and it was sort of this incredible shift from landscape to still life, and just looking at the apples fallen beneath the tree. And that was when I started my project Fallen. They are memento mori. I see them as very much part of the Dutch kind of 17th century vanitas tradition. I see them as very much about the life cycle, to the extent that like a Dutch still life might have, the skull and the candle that's just, been put out with the smoke. That may be more of just a reminder of the ephemerality of life, the sense of the brevity of life. The transition to color happened around the same time that I started looking down at the ground back at home. So I was like, I'm gonna try some color film for these. And that was really I would say that would be the official beginning of Fallen. Moving into woven, I was really compelled to work at an even more immersive, more panoramic scale. Really inspired by medieval tapestry, Jackson Pollock, Bosch. But one of the things that I was thinking about both Bosch and Dante is that everything's compartmentalized. In the Garden of Earthly Delights, there's hell, and there's this, that big central panel, the kind of lusty, sinful earth. Then there's paradise. What my impulse has been was about kind of collapsing the three panels into one. My response to that painting, my very personal response, for me, I don't experience life in these three compartments, that there isn't like the hell and the paradise and this other thing in three neat panels, that very crucially it's about the intermingling of those things. I think all the time about iconography. Certainly the snake skins. The snakes are snakes are obviously one of the most potent symbols in the Garden of Eden, but I'm kind of into this sense of excess. So instead of one singular snake in the Garden of Eden, there's kind of this proliferation. So, woven number 1 has, some half a dozen snakes. Number 17, which is made up of antlers, is thinking about hunting tapestries and the sort of tradition of hunting, but there's this sense of extreme excess. So there's some 30 antlers, and really in some ways meditating on humans taking too much, plunder. I think also moving to this scale, I did want to do something really bold and grandiose, and there was something even about turning 50 that had some relationship to that just, why not? Just that I wanted to make something super intense, to let kind of all of my love of kind of working obsessively and passionately completely out, just to completely let it out and not hold back at all. And it's been really great to work that way, like very, very ecstatic actually. One of the things that working in this wildly obsessive, constructed way allows me to do with bins and bins and bins of collected material is that I can put all kinds of things together that would not normally concur in nature. So in woven number 1, I have, I made that in June when cherries are in season. And I have a few fairy roses that just came into bloom in my garden, and other things like yellow foxglove and that are just fresh. But then along with that, I have milkweed pods, and that would not happen in June. That happens in the fall, kind of playing with the natural and the unnatural. It's a kind of timescape. I think it was the idea of a kind of Jackson Pollock immersive experience without an exit of the horizon line. There's not the same sense of context. So in some ways it was kind of like moving, just moving down into the Earth's crust or onto the surface. I think that was really what appealed to me about it. The fairy tale part of these is really important to me. I mean, fairy tales are so dark. Like the original Grimm's fairy tales, just incredibly, incredibly dark, violent. But also they do have, this magic. So I think this gets at something which is very, very important, sort of probing something about the unknown in nature. On one hand, I'm using this medium, which is all about the visible world and describing the visible world as precisely as possible. And I always want to use the medium for that, for those qualities. But I think that sort of probing of the unknown, I do sometimes feel reluctant to talk about these things because they do seem sort of abstract and grandiose, but they're very, very much on my mind. It was extremely important to me that when you move in close, things are described really lushly, really beautifully, so that you could experience sections of them in close like a still life. And then move back, and hopefully the idea is that they hold together as all over compositions. But I liked the idea that there would be a kind of equality or democracy between the things that have a greater iconographic weight, like a snake or a piece of fruit or an antler, as compared to like a little brown stick that's just maybe has a smaller symbolic role, but still has just kind of an exquisiteness just by something in the beauty of its nature that I want to describe as exquisitely as I can using the photographic medium.